Hey, it's Chris. Crowdfunding roundup. You ready? Let's go. And just like 2 of the last 3 weeks, I feel like this video is going to be 20 plus games. So tune in, buckle up. And as someone let me know in the comment section on one of the other videos from this week, he's like, your commentary, you're talking too fast. It's making me anxious. Okay, I'll try and be, well, a little bit calmer, a little bit smoother. Okay, I'll try and be a little less angst provoking. I can't promise any calmer, right? Let's go. When you raise this much money this fast, we're going to start off with you on the video, right? Dice Throne, Outcasts, and Adventures Unchained. Now, you can get whatever you want, apparently, per the Facebook group. But again, FAQ, there's not everything listed as the add-ons that you may want as add-ons. For example, you can't actually add on some of the other stuff that's even on the page in other pledge levels, but you can get them down below. That being said, right, what is this offering? It's offering us 4 new characters with Outcasts. It's offering us kind of like a little mini upgrade / expansion for adventures. And I say that for a reason, and we'll get to that in a second. And it gives you miniatures and acrylic tokens and sleeves and promo packs and whatever the mythic card is. So you can get some of that stuff to go along with it. And the question for me was free loan. Why am I giving it to you, right? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles didn't do it for me. Dice Throne Outcasts is doing it more for me right now. I'm not sold yet completely on it, so we'll see. Necromancer, Raveness, Headless Horseman, Pale Lady who turns into a werewolf. That's what you've got going on here. Unchained, however, is bringing you a new boss, a new roguelite progression style mode, as well as new one-shot, one-time, one-off scenarios. So they're giving you a little bit more, but it's sort of a mini expansion. Because the price point really is only about like $20. And that's because if you get just the new heroes, right? The 4 news with the promo right here, it's $50. But if you get the expansion with it, well, that's only $70. So that's where I'm getting that $20 from right there, even though it's not listed down below as the add-ons. Then the next pledge level actually goes up to 99, which again, this is where I sort of have the dilemma, right? That doesn't include the Outcasts. So if you're someone like me who doesn't have the adventures in the first place, and wants to get Adventures, the expansion, and the Outcast, there's no pledge level for that, so you're going to have to get one of those as an add-ons. As they say, it's like, you know, $80 to add on Adventures, which is 80 plus 70 right here, or it's $50 to add on Outcasts, so 50 plus 99, 149 versus $150. And that's the same price. And this is sort of why I don't really see the reason to wait or to do it, or what's going to happen with Dice Throne Adventures, because they don't clarify that on the page, I think, either. You can go over to Dice Throne, Roxley-ish website, whatever it is right now, and buy it on their website for $80 currently. And so that's, I wouldn't mind a little bit of a deal discount wise bundle if I'm going to do it on crowdfunding as a free loan. So I'll just put that out there. It's, in case you're not completely familiar, I should have started with this at the beginning. It's dice battling Yahtzee with special asymmetric powers and cards to mitigate along the way in all sorts of manners with the dice, the character abilities, the upgrade character abilities on your player board. You've got a raven flying around with a raveness. You've got the werewolf lady turning into a werewolf and changing a whole bunch of her stuff as well. The headless horseman here doing something completely different there. But then the most interesting one to me by far and away is the necromancer, because the necromancer, if you look down here, they actually are going to be summoning warriors, mages, and golems. But the complexity is a 6. This is what I was asking for, right? It's like 3, 3, 4, and 6 between these 4 characters, which is what I was clamoring for. Give me some complexity, give me some craziness, give me some, this hasn't been done before, we're jumping the shark almost-esh, but not really at the same time. And so that's why I'm kind of looking at this very hard. And I'm actually going to probably, if I can, trade for a copy of Dice Throne Adventures here before the end of this campaign to see how much I like it. I don't need to do the minis. As someone else said in the comment section, if I get like this $120 one, it's going to make me think I maybe need some of this other stuff for the other copies. So if you're like a completionist, yeah, this one is definitely playing on your FOMO. No lie, just like the other ones. But if you're not, and you're okay with just like regular cardboard stuff like I am, yeah, I'd probably say try and get Adventures in the secondary market, pick up just the new gameplay stuff here, and that'd be my preferred recommendation of how to do it at this point. They're going to have whatever this is, Chateau des Shadows. So this is like what, the promo pack, and they're telling you more of what it is or anything else along the way. New updated rule book on how to play it and more streamlined, and shipping is whatever. So I am actually more enamored than I was expecting. I sort of had the bar set really, really low after Unmatched and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing, where I was really excited and really amped up and really hoping. And then I was kind of let down. So this one, I set the bar a little lower, and that's why it's exceeded. But what does the retail look like without the promo? When you look at it, I mean, $50 sounds good on the surface value for it with the promo pack. But at the same time, honestly, I'm not really sure it's that quote unquote good of a deal. If you're someone like me, like I said, who's not looking for some of those extras. If you're looking for the extras, I think it's, definitely the way to go. But if you look at this as a 4-pack and you don't need the special extra super cool box, Kickstarter Stop It You're Drunk, we're going to go over here and you can see right now on the OP Games' website for the same sort of similar Marvel 4-pack is $29.99. Right? So $30 plus or minus shipping, $50 plus or minus shipping. It's not a ton, but it's not insignificant as well. So again, kind of going halvesies on this one. We'll see. Then we're talking 10, right? Ivy Studios' latest, my video out earlier this week. It's a little bit of a heavier in the style of your roll and writes, but not your typicals, where you're managing practically like 3 different sheets-ish to kind of get your Euro style 12 round situation. Tending, which is like planting crops, dealing with, animals, that sort of thing. Or you're chopping down wood in the forest, you're mining the ore out of the ground. Then you're also fishing, as well as selling those resources, because the main difference in this game, as opposed to a lot of these Euro or even roll and write style of things, is you don't build up resources in this one. You gather them and immediately you're either utilizing them or you're selling them. And it is a little bit heavier, but although there are some elements along those lines, as someone who's not, self-proclaimed, not the heaviest gamer by any means, once I understood the rules, it was actually relatively straightforward. I worried in my video, or I mentioned that I almost feel like there's one too many things, in terms of all of those actions that I mentioned, because there's a few more even than that. There's some nuance to a few of those. There's unlocking areas that, you just can't necessarily get unlocked unless you focus. But if you focus, then you're not going to do as well in any of the other areas. So that was sort of my dilemma. And it is deluxeified in that way as well. So it's a good game. But as someone let me know in the comment section down below already, I mean, it's $70 for this. And none of this is a surprise if you're following IV Studios whatsoever, right? This is just like Chip Theory, where it's deluxe. So it's $100 deluxe here with the neoprene mats, the bonus sheets. And here you go, scratch offs, although there's going to be some computerized app usage to mitigate that if you're not a fan of that, and stamping markers. So, okay. If you want that, you can do that. The Super Deluxe as well, $130, which gets you contrast wash metal coins. I didn't even know that was a thing. And then art and card pack and holographic box. And so all of that, right? The main core premise of this, though, is there's going to be 5 actions on a round-by-round basis for 12 rounds in sort of a 5-phase-based system. You're going to be taking 2 of those actions. 3 of those actions each round are going to be generic ones that are starter actions that are going to be, well, just going through a small deck of recycling as the rounds go on. But the other 2 actions are going to be round-by-rounds, season-by-season specific in the 3 phases-ish seasons, if you will, of the game, where you're scoring after each season. After what, like rounds 5, 9, and 12, I believe it is, 12 being the end of the game. And so you're going to be filling up your commissary, gathering these resources, checking off boxes, and it just is something for the Euro lovers with the combo deliciousness. The problem, though, is some of the randomness of the fishing, some of the randomness of the scratch off. Again, it's a novelty thing, but there's not going to be predictability in the scratch off. So if you're looking for more of a pure Euro, right, this scratching might not be what you're looking for. It's going to be too uncontrollable from that aspect. I did horribly in this game, but I enjoyed it. And that's probably a bigger testament than anything else. There's projects, there's badges, there's all of those sorts of things. Look, I mean, there's plenty of quotes right here. There's plenty of quotes down further. There's plenty of previews. There's plenty of, video content for this. Everything that you might want along these lines is going to be on this page to help you hopefully look at it and say, okay, is this right for me? So again, it was deceptively heavier in the amount of stuff you're seeing on these actual pages than actually playing it. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can say is it was smooth. It was very streamlined in terms of it. I didn't get bogged down. I didn't have too much AP, or it didn't give me too much trouble in terms of actually understanding it either. So yeah, there you go. That's what I'll say. You can check out all the smarter people on the page than me that are running everything through it. Oh, wow. This is a huge page, actually. And all of the extra stuff that you can get too. A Tend jacket. Ooh, look at that. And a Tend hat. So that's everything. Shipping is on there. And if you want to get all of that stuff covered, you can give that a look-see and, you know, see if it's right for you. So there you go. Ivy Studios, another game. They're killing it. Another couple $100,000. We're actually going to go this way next. Not doing in the funding order by any means today, but we're going with one that I really enjoyed from last year, and that's Flock Together. Coming back with Birds of a Feather expansion. Ooh, good dad joke there. That's also why I wanted to put it here, right? Reprint as well, in case you missed it. One of my favorite cooperative games from last year. So it's getting a reprint in case you missed it as a cooperative, chicken faring, slight asymmetric, 3-season, 7 rounds per season style game where you are trying to defeat predators while leveling up your asymmetric chicken powers in order to take them out via the use of, well, grubs to mitigate as lesser minions to help you gather up your powers and upgrade as additional enemies to take out along the way, but then also the resources via the food that's going to help you do everything else in the game. It's going to be a round by round changing in the sense that there are also going to be weather events that will dictate what's going to happen in each of those rounds as you go along. The expansion is just giving you a little bit more of everything. It's allowing a 6th player. It's giving you more asymmetric chickens to play as, more predators to go up against, and just a little bit of extra in that regard, as well as 4 little extra components of the cheeples, chicken meeples. So again, yeah, $40. This is a small indie company, and it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And I don't think this is widely available at all at retail, and so hence the reprint more than anything else. And it's all deluxeified. So again, $90. I hate to say this, folks, but this is the trend of things, right? All of these are more than they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I don't think this is coming down. I don't think this is people just raising prices. I think this is inflation, unfortunately. So I don't think you're going to start to see things that are deluxeified for a lot less than this going forward in the next couple of years. So basically, like I said, right, new everything. A little bit more of the weather, a little bit more of the predator books, and a little bit more of the asymmetric chickens there, as well as a little bit of a board extension. So, oh, that's nice. It says it can fit inside the base box. Good. And that's it, right? You get 10 predators in the base game. You get an additional, 10 here in terms of the chickens. So it's offering a fair amount of content for the price as well. And an additional weather deck here to go along with that is another great thing. There's enough content out there right now, and I'm going to probably be doing a video here in the next couple weeks looking at a couple of those games in a slightly closer detail from last year that I talked about as crowdfunding. Like, I don't want to say previews, because I don't do previews, but like impressions, right? Like games that I said, wow, this is coming to crowdfunding. I've got a prototype. Now that I've got my final copy of some of these, do I think they're as good as when I hyped them or talked about them in the first place, right? And overwhelmingly, a lot of them are yes. Because that's, you know, kind of being a little selective on my channel too of what things I'm covering and what things I'm not covering. So all the stuff's on here, and surprisingly, I was shocked. Here's my video from like a year or two ago. So you can see how much I've grown, and actually putting out slightly more appealing thumbnails too, I think, hopefully, maybe, sort of, kind of. But there you go. That's what it's going to be. And they have their reprint going for less than a year, which is relatively impressive, actually, if that's going to hold true, which I would expect, because this is just a straight reprint with a little bit of extra expansion content. So to say that you're going to get this maybe 9 months from now, I think is probably relatively reasonable if they stay on track. So that is Flock Together with the reprint and expansion. Give it a look-see. Now we're going out of order because this one has a little bit of a special close place to my heart, but this is from Jared over at 3 Minute Board Games. He is the designer of this game, and it came across my radar, and I reached out to him. He's like, dude, this is a very take that game. It was like a 2-message thing. So that's all the information I have, but that was all I knew, at least until it came to crowdfunding today, because now you can see what this game entails. It's a 2 to 5 player game, but realistically, it's a 2-player game only if you want to play with a dummy. So really a 3-player or more area control style game. And just reading through the rulebook, getting a general sense of the vibe, gives me a combination of sort of El Grande meets shades of Ethnos, if you will, if that appeals to you. It's not a very long rulebook. It's about a like 12-ish page rulebook, and you've got about these 15 areas on the board that you're going to be doing over 3 rounds, trying to take control of in the influence stack-wise, a la your Ethnos in that way. And you get like points at the end, like 6,000 if you control main area, 3,000 if you control minor area, and then you can see that there's tokens on the map as well that you're going to be acquiring and then replacing that will give you abilities that you can use to flip them over, but then also victory points at the end. There's going to be 2 conditions in which you have to be able to win that token in the first place. One of them is really controlling the area that it's next to. But the main mechanic in this game is more of the El Grande style, because what you're going to be doing on a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis, because you're going to have 6 turns in each of the 3 rounds, you're going to be going through the multiple different phases that are present in order to play your cards that are going to have manipulation. That's where the El Grande style of things is. Each of your factions is going to have an asymmetric deck of cards that you are going to choose 10 of to, exist within a certain game, and then you are going to draw them and play them one by one as you're going along. And that's going to give you several different ways of optioning, mitigating, and dealing with the premise on the board, because you're going to be pushing, pulling, moving, taking, removing, manipulating in all sorts of different ways those tokens in those areas. And so what you're going to be doing though with those cards is they're going to be twofold. There's going to be a top, sort of above the line action, which you take every single time. And then if you meet the conditions of when you play the card, then you also get to take the bottom action as well. And there may even be multiple actions within the top or the bottom that you're utilizing those types of mechanics. How you pattern match or make the syndicate match faction wise as you lay them down will also get you that bottom action in the first place, and just tons of asymmetry and tons of take that. So it's relatively straightforward. The only thing I really don't get a sense of without watching one of the videos is what all exactly these actions will be, but like I said, it's going to be very manipulating heavy. The expansion here gets you 6 new syndicates that you can mess around with and play with as you're drawing them, replacing them, gathering them, swapping them out, because that's also going to be part of the action phase system, allowing you to, say, swap out one of the cards with your hand into the market, or drop a card to the bottom of the deck and grab it off the top. So that's going to be how you're dealing with that. $47 for the base game, I think is, relatively reasonable. It's expensive. $25 expansion to go along with that, with the extra dashboards at either level, because that's also before shipping. But this is one of those from Arcus Games that, I kind of want to support at a small level. And clearly this is not one of the biggest funders of the week, but man, is this seriously tempting. This is one of my most intriguing games. I actually didn't even know this was coming to crowdfunding this year. I was actually going to put it on my 2025 games to watch, so you can see how tuned I am comparatively to all the other channels that are covering it. But there you go. And again, it's another $17, so it's running you $90+ to get it. But oh man, okay, we're clicking remind me. Jared, you got me. Jared, hit me up. Just kidding. I'm going to be, watching some of the gameplay later. So anyway, super intrigued by this one. Love it. Then what I feel like is actually the biggest winner of the week, and we're talking about it because it's like skirmish style, war game, alternative World War I, almost $1 million in this Templar crusading style game from designers of other hit games that you may be aware of, like Magic the Gathering and Diablo. But it's a tabletop war game with your 6 different factions, mortal and immortal troops, that you're using a D6 combat system to attack in a very light but very streamlined skirmish style way. All you do is resolve your actions by rolling 2d6s. 2 to 6 is a fail, 7 to 11 success, 12 plus is a crit success. Simple system, skewing the roll in your favor, where the game's depth is allowed to just basically explode out from that. Unpredictable modifiers, ebb and flow battles, and the main mechanic of blood and blessings. Because if you don't get killed, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And you can expend those markers to force your enemy to roll at a disadvantage, or give yourself a further additional dice advantage when you're wounded. Blessings are exact opposite. Give yourself an advantage or force your opponent to do, well, just the opposite right there. Rulebook is there, some cool miniatures. Again, I just thought I'd mention it. I don't even know what else it is and how it would look. But again, this is one of those pipe dream type games of, right time, right place, kids actually interested. But either way, $1 million. Whew, kudos. There you go. Then we're talking all plays quadrology, or their 4 games as I like to say. So we're getting Ruins, Oddlands, Vegas Strip, and Money, all 4 incredibly different games. My sort of bias already, just reading the rules and getting a sense of the gameplay, because again, there's very straightforward, and the rule books are like 4 pages, like 2 pages max of each, and I prefer what looks like on the surface value Ruins, followed by Oddlands, actually followed by Vegas Strip, followed by Money. But as I'm going to talk to you about them a little bit, you'll maybe get your own preferences as well. $19 a piece is going to get you the base game. You can expand and upgrade all of them as usual. So as I always say, buy the one that appeals to you the most. If you really want to buy all 24 of their games, you'll get a 25th for free. Okay, so what are we doing here? There you go. We're getting down to the Y bucket. What are you going to get? Ruins, John DeClaire, you're going to get a upgradable, transparent card style of things. And Taylor from Trick Taking Games says that this is really kind of novel. So I give, a lot of weight to what he says from that aspect of things, because essentially what you're doing is you're going to be playing in a scout style these cards from your hand to get, your opponent's beat. But then as you're doing that, you're going to be able to manipulate the cards, because each cards, as you can see, have 3 different markers that you can put along the side here, transparently overlaying them to change the value or the abilities that these cards may have, right? Abilities and cards. He doesn't like that, does he? Oh, I'm looking at trick takers behind the camera right now. So that's what's so intriguing. And you want to be like the first one out of all of your Ruins cards from your hands, because like I said, scout style, you have to play the same number of cards higher than the person who played before you. If you can't, you all pass, and everyone passes. That's when the trick ends. Rinse and repeat. Upgrade them, but you can grab them and keep them, and you can claim 2 of them as the game goes on. So right there, right? So wonderful. Boom. Go check out his stuff. Go look at this one and see if it's right for you. I just showed you everything how you're going to be doing there. You deluxe upgrade it chipwise and with this one. Then we're going back down here to Oddland. Oddland reminds me of one of the kids games that I have. It's like Chicken Army or Chicken Dragon Army, whatever. It's one of those games that it's just like a super light style, but it's very vibish with this one, because what's going on with this game is you have these tile cards, these grids, and my kids game has the mages and the warriors and the healers and the coins. And so in that game, you're attacking each other and you're making grids of similarity, and then you go your attack versus their defense for the mage, and your attack versus their defense of the melee, and last one standing is the winner. This one is doing a similar vibe with the mechanic, in the sense that you have to lay a card down over 2 of the previous squares of the tableau that's there, but then every time you lay one of those cards, you have to lay down a creature into an area that does not already have one, a little bit of Carcassonne style, in order to score the points, and each of these creatures are going to be scoring differently. The little mini expansion here gives you 2 more creatures to play with. That's all it is. And I love this simple style of things. So this is right up my alley as well. Oh, look at those cool looking deluxe meeples. All play. I love that. Then we're getting down to Vegas Strip here. Vegas Strip is a bluffing, bidding, hidden-ish game. What you're given is a casino card in front of you that has 2 casinos on it. And what you do is you take down a clean and a corrupt card, and you place one hidden face down next to each of them. So no one but you knows which one is clean and which one is corrupt. Then you have a set of tiles that you are going to be placing at all of the casinos of everybody. But you have certain restrictions on what can be played where, as well as where you can and can't place certain ones, like your highest one. You can't place your highest one at a corrupt one that you know is corrupt, for example. Because at the corrupt ones, whoever has the most points gets all the points. At the clean ones, whoever has the most points doesn't get any points, and then everyone else there gets however many points that they have allocated. And then you just go until everyone's played their tiles, and that's the game. It's just kind of cool. The last one up is Money. It's a Nizia remix of just the similar game. And you're going to be bidding money on these swaps in markets that are going on. And based on how much money you end up with your bid, determines how many points you get. Like if you're over 200, you get ever many points you bid. If you've got 100 to 200, you get whatever it is minus 100. So if you had 150, you minus 100, you get 50 points. And if you're less than 100, you just get 0. So you're making exchanges, going back and forth and getting your meeples to go along with it. That one is not my sort of game whatsoever, but the rest of them in that order definitely are. So what are we getting here for shipping? $4 for any one or any four. So $4 for all 24 too, right? I can't help it. So there you go. That's all four of them. Those are my thoughts on them, and that's why I'm interested. So boy howdy, Ruins is hitting the wish list now. There you go. Then Harvest Fall Festival. The Golden Edition is back, so you don't have to worry about getting scalped in the board game market like it is right now for a remake of the 2017 game, also named Harvest. But the second time around appears to be the charm because it went up rating wise from a 7 to a 7.6 as a more recent, slight reimagining of your worker placement with the Earth farm theme that is all the rage nowadays. And all you're getting here is the essential previously provided edition that was offered on a Kickstarter in the Golden Edition with the promos and the upgrades. And then you're also getting a $19 expansion pack that's just offering a little bit more. A mini expansion, a few more promos, and just a little bit more of everything else, including a little bit more solo for you solo junkies as well. Basically, the gist of this game is that at the beginning of each round, you draft a card that gives you a one-time income. And that card is also then used to determine the initiative order for all of your worker placement actions as you go around the farm and do all of the farm things that a farm thing can. I'm not going to give you any more details. There's enough information out there. You can do all of that stuff. Here's more of the new stuff, the characters, the animeeples, the asymmetry, the new solo challenges, the upgrade kit that they're offering, as well as the little promos to go along with it. They tell a little bit about what that is. They talk about the Golden Edition coming back, and it's really about an hour or less worker placement that people seem to be slightly enamored with from a deluxeification standpoint because it's not very easily available on the secondary market. So Keymasters put out something that people really like, and they're back at it again, and $70,000 is there you go. Nothing shabby, and they're doing great. Speaking of worker placement games, we're going to Sweetlands, and you're going Sweetlands? Yeah, I'm going to Ochibacoya. Aqua Garden, Ostia, back with Sweetlands. Heavier worker placement, heavier than anything else they've done in the past. And this has got $250,000 for a reason. Now, truth be told, they reached out to me and they're like, hey, do you want to cover this? Because I had been failing to get back to them on the previous games because I was actually supposed to cover the reprint of Ostia and I just missed the email and I had to apologize. But they reached out and I said, man, this looks awesome. And I said also, man, this is probably too heavy for me. 100 to 200 minutes on a routine basis, right? And so I'd be lying right now if I told you that I'm still not slightly interested in this one because, again, it's one of those that if I try it, will I really like it? Or am I just going to be completely overwhelmed? I just don't know. But the thing you'll say about Ochibacoya's games from a Japanese board game publisher is that they're not available widely in the secondary market. And when they are, they're significantly increased, or even when they've come through the Ochibacoya store in the past, they are up, priced from that aspect without any doubts. Lots of cards, lots of components, lots of wooden pieces. Upgrade pack to make it more premium. These freaking awesome looking meeples to go along with it. Look how big that box is. That is a massive box. Anyway, so pledge level, it's more like a Lacerda. I would argue that this is probably the closest thing to a Lacerda we've seen, but at the same time, mechanically speaking, I have no idea. However, I trust my boy Jay here from Cardboard East. So if he says it's this good, I say you click right here on his link, go check out what he says in more detail and break it down there as what you need to know, right? You have 14 asymmetric characters, abilities, and strengths that are going to allow you to achieve the sweet throne to get your victory points and your city points and your industrial points and all of those cities' advantages to get you up the prosperity track higher than your opponents, right? Any more details on the rules? I have no clue, folks. You're gonna have to watch one of those videos. It gives you the, image by image, GIF by GIF breakdown here of the generic things that you're gonna be doing along the way. But how is it different? What else do you need to know? I'm leaving the rule book here for you. This one's too heavy for me, like the Lacerda ones, to be able to give you a succinct, very quick summary, but it's solid work from Ochibacoya. So the question is just whether or not it's for you, not whether or not it's a good game. So see, look, it's all the heavier people covering stuff too. So, again, I would have been well outside of my depth, talking out of, ignorance or talking out of idiocy. That's what it was. Not ignorance, but idiocy. Chris is talking about a heavyweight game. Skip. Are they distributing through Devere, or they're working with Devere? Oh, Spanish edition partner. So maybe they're making some traction. Ochibacoya maybe getting some worldwide, printing, and that'd be cool. So give it a look-see. Tell them Liege sent you. Now, we gotta talk about this. Fable Fury, cooperative roguelike board game. We're hitting on some keywords because this is by some huge other name, video game, Minecraft YouTuber. And it speaks with a Launch Boom-esque vibe because it's put up by Launch Boom. Because if you actually want to know anything about this game, the only thing that's on this page that's going to tell you is a Game Nerds preview video where Game Nerds was paid, because they're also going to be the exclusive distributor of this when it comes to retail. So it's just kind of a weird vibe from my standpoint. I have a whole nother video dedicated to that whole conversation though. But it's hitting up on the video game side of things. It's hitting up on his fan base more than anything else. I tried to get any more information, but the only pages that they had available will link to this. And all the social media is just like a couple random images and couple random descriptions of this. I had to watch the video to even get a sense of things because there's no rule book and there's no real, well, showing off of anything on here. Essentially, you have these characters that are like slightly asymmetric that are going to have anywhere from like 1 or 2 or 3 different dice. And you pick one of these random like setup cards that lays down the terrain, and you just like start randomly flipping them over, going from one to the other. And there's traps and there's enemies and there's like events. And it's just totally random. And it's got some nice like pictures and some nice narrative to go along with it. But otherwise, it's just like, oh, leader loses 10 health. Move to the next one. Leader has to move to the back of the line. Up, all the party takes 4 damage. And the enemies are just straight up rolls. You just straight up roll your dice. And if you do enough, then you win. And they take damage based on how you roll. And if you don't, well, your hero takes damage. And then just rinse and repeat. So it's almost more like a roll and move, if you will, with a slight improvement, slight other nuance, because you can buy little things from the market. You can see the colored cards down here that will correspond to the sides of your player boards to give you unique little asymmetric abilities. But even then, there's very little information in that regard whatsoever. So that's about it that I can tell you, right? It's got the 3 AI programs. So like if you don't knock out the enemy on the very first turn, then it's going to do this thing first, and then the second one, and then the third one. And it might hit, you know, just one person and one person, then everybody is what those iconography represent. The loot that you're going to get, and then it just kind of runs you through the bling and the bling and the bling. Because the expansion, I think right here, isn't even offered at the lower level, if I'm remembering. And it's actually a $40 expansion with basically just 3 little booster packs, each pack featuring 12 enemy cards, which is not considerably a ton. Like 12 cards, so 36 cards for $40. That's what you've got going on there. And if you want to get more of that bling, well, you can get the expansions and the exclusive coins and the metal coins and the character expansion, which gives you, well, a little bit of everything else. So there's the video that I was talking about right there. That's it, right? Explore, level up, shop, flip over a card, maybe buy some stuff, and maybe shop, and then go. So you have to get like to a shrine and a portal on each area in order to win. So if you don't find it right away, you have to keep running around and exploring it, and then you do it like 3 times overall. So I don't know. I mean, this is super, super, super light. So that's all I can really say. And you really need to be knowing what you're going into at this point. And I really think this needs a lot more information, a rule book or something else to say, okay, like besides calling it wacky, besides giving it wacky illustrations, the elements are very, very simple and straightforward. So if you're looking for that, it's going to be very approachable from a family side of things. I'm not sure the staying value apart from that might be what you're looking for if you're looking for anything heavier. So, but give it a look-see. Fable Fury. Yeah, we're talking about it. Star Trek murder, mystery, and escape room games, right? You want Picard, Strange New World? You know, like every once in a while, you'll see one of these like games that pops up that's completely unlicensed. And so usually it lasts a couple days. But if you've got Matthew Lillard here talking about Star Trek, it must be. So take that for what it is. Again, you can't really tell a whole lot of what's going on with these because otherwise, right, you'd spoil them. So there's very limited information, which is very similar in this way for me personally for a legacy game. You can't tell me anything about it. So why would I want to give you a free loan right now? Why not wait and see what it actually looks like? And so that'd be my only concern. But I guess if you're a Star Trek junkie and somehow you're a huge escape room game fan, this is like a match made in heaven. So give it a look-see. Gosh, I didn't even realize this was a cooperative game until I looked at it again. Vikings versus Beasts. I swear I have seen this before. I swear this has come around before, but it says that this is their first one created. So I'm like having serious deja vu with this one, as a bloody voyage comes head to head at a 4 basically phase system as you're traversing goods across a map. Similar to, just very eerily vibes, I guess, from a Dark Horse standpoint, of Leviathan Wilds. So, you know, if that's not a comparison enough, right? Thrilling, but maybe mix that with a Sky Team vibe, because this is a 1 to 2 player game. Minis. This doesn't need minis, and that's going to be my biggest hesitation to get it. I love expandable, flexible play sessions. Drop in, drop out. You know, go across, have your asymmetric heroes that you're using ability wise, fighting all different tons of monsters as they jump out and attack you as you're traversing across the map based on the depths of the seas that are going to spawn them, essentially. And expansion adding up to 6 players. So, right, that's kind of weird, right? The base game is 2 players, but you're going to put out enough expansion content to make it up to 6. And then also, this base game is only that. You're going to get deluxe dice and the stretch goals for $50. $100 though is going to get you characters, spear tokens, storage solution, foil box, deluxe meeples, and, well, a little bit of massive beast miniatures. So I don't think these miniatures are necessary. I like the actual just card laying around the side of the boat, as you'll see down here in the graphic. So this one has totally put on my wish list as a want, but a want with just, you know, the retail version for me. These quotes aren't going to tell you anything, but essentially what you're doing is you're vibing over a 4-phase system here. As you're moving, depending on the weight of your boat, you're going to be marking off spaces on this grid, trying to make it from destination to destination. And you can see that these different spots are different colors. Based on the color, you're going to be drawing cards from the decks right here: shallow, deep, and abyss. Abyss is where all the really bad stuff is. And that's what you're going to be utilizing to see what encounters you occur, how many or what types of monsters pop up around the side of your boat, as we'll talk about in a second. As you're doing that, then the beasts attack you. If they hurt you, you take damage, obviously, but then it's your turn to retaliate. If you draw blood, you get to immediately use that blood or save it up to upgrade your character or to make them stronger very quickly in order to fight back. That's what a lot of the blood markers over here indicate on the actual player boards as well. Player expansions here, you're getting the makeshift vessel, which also gives you 2 additional options to add players. I have very mixed feelings about offering 2 expansions like that at the time of campaign, but I think you're trying to appeal to as many player counts as you can, so I don't, you know, begrudge them either. I think this would be a great 2-player game for my wife and I. I think I would like to try it at a 3 or 4 player as well. So, man, that's tempting, but you know, which expansion then? Do you get the player 1 expansion? Do you get the player 2 expansion? What if you want some of the 2 content and you just don't want the 1 content? Can you get this one? Yeah, I guess you can get either right there. So little promo pack, little deluxeification there. I just like the little meeples. I like the wooden upgrades much more than those miniatures. The color really brings more from a table presence standpoint. So, and then it runs you through, right? So here's the 4-phase action system I was talking about. The sailing as you're moving across based on your boat's speed. You circle where you stop. The monsters surround you depending on where you go and how many you need to draw. They attack, you attack, refocus, basically discarding and upgrading, and then they move around the boat and you resolve the events that go along with it. So I think it looks fantastic. I can see why it's got over $200,000 raised right now. I wish the how to play was not all the way at the bottom. This might be one of the longer ones I've ever seen. Like, look at this, right? This whole side of things. And how to play. Again, just exemplifying, I'm guessing also, because you saw the launch boom at the bottom, launch boom telling them it has to be not a bug, but a feature of crowdfunding pages where they say, hey guys, don't put how to play at the top. People don't actually want to know that. Don't link them in with gameplay. Link them in with bling. I guarantee it. I guarantee that's the advice being given, and it does really irritate me. But there you go. Sea Beast doing good. Want it on my wish list now. Gosh, next up from Bad Comet. I was just talking about this yesterday as the upcoming one from Bad Comet Games. And it's because I did the must-have look back for October, talking about actually both of their previous games, Life of Amazonia and Wondrous Creatures. So October is like their sweet spot. They're like, ramp it up. But basically the gist of it in both those games was, they're a small indie designer to watch, given the pedigree of how their games have been improving and looking from an awesome design standpoint. And truth be told, I kind of looked at this as being shallow because I'm shallow. But then, just kidding. I'm making fun of myself, not them, not at them at all. But what I'm saying, though, is that I looked at this and I was like, oh, well, that looks, a little bit light. And then I looked a little bit further and it gives me shades of like Calico meets Cascadia, if you will. And so what I mean by that is you're going to be creating this sort of hex-based grid on your player board here, and you Cascadia style vibe it, grabbing a tile and a fish every single time. And you place the tiles down next to ones that are previous down in the spots that you can see on the board here. But then you place the fish in the vertices in between. And if you complete the tile requirements, then you get to flip them over, claim them, and get points. And that's the combination of things you're going to be doing, because now you can see blown up here what that aspect looks like and why it reminds me of that as a whole. So that is going to be very tactical, very strategic, and not that long to play at the same time. So that's why I think this one is just absolutely busting through, because man, those meeples look cool as well. Rare Fish mini expansion. This wasn't supposed to be me adding games to my wish list week. I was supposed to have nothing but like Dice Throne on my radar, and now here we are again, right? Select the fish, put it on there, puzzle it, get which fish you want, and it may help create a bigger environment that scores you more points later on. So this game absolutely looks outstanding as well in the line and in the vibes of those. The question again is just, is it going to be for you at $58? Because for a Cascadia Calico-esque vibe, in that light, $58 is a heck of a lot of money. But if you've learned anything watching The Wondrous Creatures or The Life of Amazonia, some of those upgrades with a little bit of extras that they've put in their previous campaigns are incredibly hard to get. So that's the issue you have to kind of wonder here. And this actually, that gets the mini expansion and the big expansion. So I missed that the first time when I was popping by here. So this is getting a more competitive interaction. You can have turtles laying eggs on shore. Those turtle meeples are freaking sweet looking. Okay, bad comment. Okay. You're killing it here. Scenario mode too. Challenge yourself with solo. So if you're a solo gamer, give that a look-see. Everyone else knew about it. I didn't have a clue again. I am just head in the sand right there. So this looks freaking awesome. And it's just, again, which indie publisher with a slightly deluxeified game are you backing this week? But this would be a good candidate to be on the short list. That's Shallow Sea. Then we're going up here with I Made a Mixtape. A little bit of an I Cut You Choose vibe with a little bit of set collection, with a little bit of a different vibe. Ooh, dad pun. $25, because what you're doing here is you're given 3 cards in the beginning of the game. You divide those into 2 piles. You pass them to a person on your side. They then choose which of those piles they want to keep. They pass you back the one that they don't want to keep. So you're going to be doing that with someone else, of keeping one, and they're going to be passing you back the other. Then you take those cards and you sort of link them. As you can see, there are paths going down these, and you need to connect them in order to make your mixtape. But you can see that there is also directionality or sides in that as well, and that's going to have to be balanced depending on how your flow and your track, equalizing the A and B sides, as they say, in order to, well, keep it right where you need it to on your mixtape as a whole. Then too much of a music collection composition is not going to be cohesive. It's not going to score you as many points. And so those are all the things that you're going to be having to take into account in order to score the more points than your opponents. So a little bit of everything else to go along with it. Very light, very straightforward though, so I can see why it's got $30,000 already. So give it a look-see if you like this sort of thing as a nice light filler. I Made You a Mixtape. Then Tikal Legend, based off of a game 25 years ago, Tikal, where you're placing explorers in the original base game of having 7 different basic actions that you're going to be taking, moving your explorers around, gathering tiles, gathering resources, clearing temples in order to score the most points. And look at this right here. Tikal Legend is not just a re-implementation, but a new game based on Tikal. Okay, great. You take on the role of museum director, sending archaeologists to, find buried treasure and temple sites. We got some quotes here. It's not a redesign or a re-implementation. It's a standalone game. Didn't we just read that right there, almost word for word? Like, okay, awesome. Oh, by the way, they're making it 15% bigger. They set up here. I think I skipped that part, or maybe that's lower already. So that will also explain the, 50% increased price. Sorry, not sorry. So stretch goals, miniatures, deluxifications to get Tikal as a whole, right? What you're getting with a $97 basic version, WTF. Holy F balls, Batman, right? That is without any of the, okay, they just made it bigger. They made it bigger for all this mechanics and all this stuff to go along with it. The problem is, if you don't know how to play the original, nothing on this page is going to tell you how to play the original. You can check out the rules. That's the only thing that's going to be on here otherwise, if you're like me and you prefer to look at that instead of a video. Because all they say is new mechanics right here, right? Timing is there. Everyone drafts actions and takes turns resolving them. So instead of just choosing your actions, you're going to draft them, and you can place anywhere on the board instead of in very particular areas. The scoring, they say in the base game, only has 2 different ways to win, and now they're giving you more modularity in all the terrain types that you're going to be exploring along with it to score points in completely different ways, and how they're all going to be scoring in different ways. So this is really going to be, well, essentially helpful for people who are very familiar with the base game. But if you're not, like, that doesn't help you as someone new going in, right? Again, it's not a redesign, it's not a re-implementation. Okay, that's the 3rd time on the page. But again, it's all sort of, well, paid gameplay content. So those are descriptions of the game. I don't think they're opinions. So take that for what you will. You're probably better off watching their gameplay and seeing, okay, dynamically, how much does this affect things? Because there's a reason this game is getting a reprint. It's very well thought of in the first place. I just wish it wouldn't like quadruple in price at the same time. I like some of the deluxifications. I like some of the upgraded art, but is it enough to make me want to pay $100+ for it with some changes? Does it make it an outstanding game as a whole? We'll see. There you go. Tikal Legend. Actually, 87,000. Doing really well. Then Pride of Ninja. I talked about this one on my review at the beginning of the week, the multi-game mini review, as sort of a slightly heavier, slightly more complicated love letter meets coup style of things, with an advanced mode as well as a basic mode, blue and red. And those are the decks that you're going to be using as you draft cards. 7 to your tableau that goes in front of you, 2 rows, one of which is going to be face up, one of which you're going to be playing face down. And if you fill up a row, you're going to have to place in the others. All of these cards are going to have abilities that are going to either take place depending on what row they're in, or how many of them you have, or how many of you have compared to your opponents. And you not only can get points that way, but you're also then going to be able to potentially be killed or slay your opponents, which reduces their point total in that round potentially to 0. And you go until 20 points. You allocate the number of cards based on the number of players, in the sense that you will not use all the cards in every single game. And so some of them will be taken out at certain player counts in order to have that dynamic and that flow. The red deck is a little bit more advanced, because not only are the cards going to have a love letter-esque vibe in the upper left-hand corner of the number they are, but in this case, the number actually corresponds to the order in which their powers take place, because you will have ones affect subsequent other ones or point totals along the way. And so then the lower the number, the sooner it goes in the initiative. And in the red deck, the initiatives actually get added and then subtracted. You add them totally up in each row, and then you subtract one row from the other, and that gives you additional bonus points in that way. That is Pride of Ninja from Ninja Star Game. It's very heavy, take that. So that's probably the biggest thing that you need to know more than anything else. But it's really nice for what it is, if that is your style of things as a whole. It's going to be very much, wow, I just got screwed, or wow, that was amazing, wow, I didn't see that coming. And if that is your style of game in this line of things, awesome. There you go. Give it a look-see. It's funded. 64 of 5,000. There you go. Then Tricky Time Crisis, Dawn of the Trick Takers. Nearly 200% funded here. And this is offering, as it says, 4 new trick-taking games, all with little bit different rules. However, one of these, Tricky Time Crisis, is actually a little bit of expansion content comparatively. It runs you through each of the 4 of these. Each of the 4 rule books are actually at the bottom of the page if you scroll all the way down, and then you can get a sense of what these trick-taking, ladder climbing, follow or don't follow style games are. First one, as you can see, incorporates a can't follow method, meaning in that sense, if you're not familiar with it, is someone plays a trick or a color and you have to not follow what is led, and if you can't do so, that's where you're going to start to fail. The first one here, Tip of the Diceberg, takes a clamming, shedding style of things as you're trying to get rid of your cards, but you have to do so in order of creating combinations that are lower or having a lower card than the previous combination out there. So for example, in this picture on the left, it has sets of 3. The one on the left is laid first, it has 3 5s. The one on the right has to have a set of 3, but it also has to have a card or something lower than a 5. Similarly here, again, numbers matter, but numbers being less than what your previous person has played in the first place. That's how you're going, and you're melding these cards together in terms of finding out what you can do combination-wide. Trick or bid here is the second one as well, with a Halloween theme. Catch here with this one is that when you win the trick, you can win the trick as a trick, or you can take one of the cards and use that as the bid for how many tricks you think you're going to win. And then the third here is the expansion, the Spawn of Time, where you're going to be playing in a cooperative or semi-cooperative manner, where heroes are going to be trying to complete the objectives that the bad guy is setting forth, with all of these different sort of crew-esque vibes, right? Like all cards have to be the same value. But the tricky part with this one is, again, this is a don't follow, meaning if you have all of the cards being the same value, they have to be different suits, and it gives you all of these. Like the sum of them has to be equal to 15 of the cards played with all of, say, your 4 players in that hand or example. And then the last one here, Power Tricks, again, is a 3 to 5 player version of things, where you've got 4 different asymmetric suits numbering anywhere from 1 to 15, but 11 cards in each set, I believe, that are going to be slightly skewed in their variation. So you can kind of see with the asymmetry down here, the deck makeup is going to be slightly skewed. 1 to 9, 1 to 11, 2 to 13, 3 to 15. But these sword cards are also going to be trump cards because you're trying to lay the highest card. But every single round of the trick that you play, you can grab the top card off of this sword deck, which is slowly increasing. And what that means is the value that it's going to add to all of your other tricks in that hand is the same. So on round 1, if you grab the sword, it's going to add +1 to all of your future numbers, because the suit of these matters less than the overall number that you're playing. And so if you grab it in the third hand, for example, all of your cards then will be +3 from then on. The later you grab it, the more pluses it's going to give you, but the less chances you are to be able to use it. And that's where those swords are coming in right there. And it gives you other ways of sort of manipulating it based on the scenarios that'll change the dynamics there. All 4 rule books, everything else you need to know. And that is your quadrilogy of trick taking in that way. Then Battlefield's Deluxe Edition from Elzra Games, sort of a light spin-off of the classic Catacombs or the Catacombs versus Castles that you've seen previously, only this one is going to allow you to draft a certain number or value of units in order to then take out your enemies via, well, potentially point scoring, potentially last one standing, or potentially take out the enemy commander, whichever you prefer. Enemies being the value that the level that they are in the first place when you're drafting them. And so you want to be the first one in the basic game up to 10 points. So when you draft all 3 of these, it might be a level 4, a level 3, and a level 6. And so if you take out the level 4 and the level 6, you would win. If you took out a 4 and 2 3s, you'd win. First one up to 10 in that way. But what you're doing and how this differs from the previous Catacombs is you have the stats that are right here that are going to dynamically change what the creatures may be doing. Either make it weaker when they get damaged, or they make it stronger when they get damaged. But then also you're actually flicking dice, because whatever side the die lands on after it hits the chip, that is the amount of damage that that creature takes. So highly random, but that's what you're getting, and that's what it's going to offer differently in terms of the dice, the powers, and everything else that you may have been familiar with Catacombs and Castles, as well as just Catacombs 3rd edition in the first place. A little bit of content down there, all the rings that you're flipping and go along with the asymmetry of the characters, and it's heavy duty 2 mashing up of playmats to make the board in the first place. So there you go, Elzra. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully this one gets there, and maybe it'll even be closer by the time you guys are watching this. Then we're going 2nd edition with Lore here, a fantasy adventure sort of tableau builder where you get 12 turns in order to upgrade your hero to get the most points in a competitive or cooperative style game, depending on which you want to do. And what you're essentially doing here is sort of moving around an area, upgrading, building your tableau. And the 3 phases of this game that you're going to be taking on a round by round basis are, first, you're going to be moving from place to place. Or if you stay in the same place, you train your powers depending on what location you're at. And you have 4 actions as the main crux of your turn, where you're dueling monsters via dice, hunting for treasure, exploring lore, or visiting the merchant if you're in the settlement in the first place. The third phase goes to the fact that it's the time of the day. You might randomly encounter allies, enemies, enchantments, or even events that are going to have different effects on what's going to happen to your character. And then, well, rinse and repeat. See who has the most points, or fight the Dark Paladin, depending on if you're playing solo, competitive, or cooperative. We'll go into a little bit briefer detail so you get a little bit more sense here. The monster fighting, for example, there's going to be monsters lined up with the areas of the board that you may be depending on. And so you're going to duel one that is lined up with the section of the world map where your character piece is as you go across. You're going to use your dice and your abilities in order to get a number of power greater than or equal to the monsters. And all of those are going to be ways that you can mitigate as well as deal with what the monster might be throwing at you in the first place, using those dice that you've said here. Then, based on the result, you can get your rewards featured at the bottom of the cards for the monsters in the first place. Last up, like I mentioned, as that shop action, where you're going to be using those gems that you may have won from previous duels in order to get more relics, pay for more training, or, well, get more quests along the way. A little bit of euro, a little bit of dice chucking, and it's got a little bit of more of an aesthetic upgrade here. So shipping is going to be whatever it's going to be. And I think I remember this one coming around the first time, but I just don't remember much else about it. But man, it's doing really well. Nearly 30,000 of its $10,000. So give it a look-see. Then Animalcatraz. Stop it, Kickstarter. Again, $36,000 of its $28,000 funding goal. And you want to be the first one to escape Alcatraz, the animal version of it, as you're taking your actions, 5 actions per round, in a essentially almost a 3-round game, depending on the game length, because I think you really want to either become the kingpin or break out within that time frame. You can play solo, you can play head to head, you can play one versus all, you can play a little bit of co-op here. And you have the gangsters that you'll be moving around, I believe, in the 10 different locations on the map, each with different actions that you can take in those locations. However, there are going to be guards placed in the locations randomly, depending on how they're allocated at the beginning of each round, to stop you from using certain actions in certain places to change or mitigate and force you to adapt on the fly. And so again, you want to be the first one to escape and utilize the resources that you're gathering along the way in all of the different areas in order to do so. Then if we pull up the rulebook here, you can see how you're going to be doing said escape. It gives you a little run through an example using the strength, a little bit of dice rolling, as well as some pooled numbers that you had previously, depending on how well you, set yourself up for this in the first place. And so your cunning, your strength, as well as dice, a little bit of euro, a little bit of Amerithrash. And again, it runs you through all of the other options that are going to be potentially available to you, including corrupting the guards, owning the cell block as a whole, and then committing crimes and, stashing all of the stuff and the loot that you have in the first place that you've made via contraband trading and everything else along the way. So there are the game modes that I mentioned. And let's see what else we got going on here. You can get it with minis if you really want. Add-ons down here below. There's a little bit of gameplay on the stretch goals here that you're seeing right there. And then there's plenty of content down here if you want as well. So a little bit of everything as a whole. What's the price point as we skimmed over that very quickly? I like looking at the side better. It just works in my head a little bit better from that aspect of things. So 57 bucks, 79 Canadian. Okay. Fair enough. And if you want the Kingpin edition, and that is the deluxeified version of it, it's, 80 bucks. So like I said earlier in the video, right, this is sort of the price of deluxeifications almost regardless of the type of game or the mechanics as a whole right now. So this doesn't surprise me. And it's doing something just a little bit different as an escape game. It reminds me of the other game, Fled, from the creator of Feudum that we saw a couple months ago. But that was more tile laying. This is more resource manipulation. So a little bit more interactive in this case, and a little bit more potentially take that, but that's Animalcatraz. Then we have Clandestine, which is a very unique, interesting spin on things. And when we talked about Medkala last week as sort of the Mancala version of an Amerithrash head-to-head asymmetric dueling style of things, this takes that similar mechanism, throws it into a more of a worker placement style, and gives you it from a heavier Euro aspect. So already right there, it's doing something different because, again, as I've said previously, what is this doing that doesn't, share similar space or up here in the mind in terms of why I would get it comparatively to similar games? 30 to 40 minutes per player. And it's got, it's a little bit of a rondel, but it's a little bit of actually more of a Mancala-esque vibe. because what you're doing is you're taking a leader action on either the public leader or your individual society leader on the board. And then what you do is that you make your followers that are in that location go out a la your Mancala version of things and get situated out in the subsequent other areas on the board. And so for each valued follower that's in your location, though, when you take the action before you move them out, that determines how strong that action is in the first place. And so that's the twist, as it says right here. As you gather them, it gets stronger. You're also going to be able to take either the public leaders or your secret society factions. As you're slowly taking these actions, gaining your 3 different types of resources and the manipulation, including relics and other treasures along the way in order to benefit, you're going to be slowly making your society more public and more knowledgeable to the general public in the first place. And so the game trigger is actually when you accumulate enough basically visibility and you get to the 5th level of visibility. But that in itself is not the winning condition for the game. The winning condition for the game is actually going to be intrigue points, which are your victory points based on how you're getting there and the ways in which you're manipulating in the first place. That's going to matter. So it's not an end game trigger and victory point condition. It's one and the other separately. The other balancing act that goes along with this is as you're getting stronger, as your society is leveling up, you're going to get more abilities. You're going to throw and gain followers to multiple locations on the map. But you're also going to be mitigating and dealing with what they call chaos, which is going to get in the way of your ability to use certain actions in the first place that you're going to have to mitigate as sort of like a little bit of a negative resource, if you will, from that aspect of things. Give the rulebook a look-see. It's 36 pages, but it's a relatively, easier-ish read from that aspect, and the video content will give you a little bit more of a streamlined approach. Go check out John Gets Games. He puts out awesome stuff, but it's funded, so give it a look-see. Kickstarter. Then Barony, the Royal Edition, 15 grand. Barony as a 6-action selection style game as you're slowly placing out your troops, using your troops to build little towns and cities, and then using those towns and cities to score victory points then to upgrade your title enough times, then you win the game. The Royal Pledge here is getting a little bit of deluxification in terms of the resources and the wooden awesome meepleness that is, and then you're also going to have an expansion that includes a little bit more asymmetric heroes and sorcerers. They're going to give you abilities that you can use supposedly as a surprise or a one-off potentially when they're utilized, or how you want to change the game dynamics. A little bit of stretch goals here, a little bit of both gameplay and deluxification. And then they say, what's changed? Well, sorcery is giving you more magic and more spells that you can use to mitigate and cause chaos. The Heroes expansion that I mentioned is giving you those surprise abilities that can be used once per game, the new art, and everything else. It runs you through the 6 actions right here of putting down horsies, and then moving your horsies, and then constructing towers out of your horsies, followed by replacing your villages with a city, if you've got enough of them down from that standpoint, or removing your horsies from the board in the first place and then placing them on any other space that you can, sort of a spatial manipulation there. The last point is, 15 resource points. Upgrade your title, Baron to Viscount, Count to Marquis, and then Duke to win. So everything is there. And the other issue that you need to be aware of is that with these actions up here, right, if you're moving into a space with an opposing pawn or village, you remove those tokens and get somebody else's resource. So that's where the area control take that style is going to play a heavy role. Rule books are right there. Video content's all over the place as well. So second time around, it's doing pretty well for a slight deluxified version of things. Second editions are all the rage. There you go, Barony. Then last up, Royal Hospital back over here on GameFound. 14 of a 16 grand goal and sort of a Euro style tableau management engine build as you take care of patients that are being brought to the hospital. Phase 1, play your cards, mitigate, gain, lose, all of those things. Phase 2, utilize those resources gained in phase 1 in order to save and treat the patients that are admitted to your hospital in the first place. Coordinate the ambulances, the helicopters, get agreements with insurance companies, doing all the super fun stuff that comes along with running a hospital. I mean, the first phase is relatively simple. You play cards or you activate cards that are already out until you can't. You go until everyone passes, and then you go on to the potentially simultaneous phase, depending on how experienced you are, as you're using then allocated resources in order to heal or treat the patients that have presented themselves to your hospital in the first place. Diagnosis, treatment, curing ICU patients, as well as dealing with terminal patients, all of them going to be having to dealt with in slightly different ways and affecting the slightly different dynamics that each of them bring. So rulebook is there, one set of videos that you can check out, and it's a little bit more of a Euro style game if you're looking for this. Lighter version of something more like Clinic, if you will. Again, I think Clinic is a super heavy game. This one doesn't appear to be that way, so I'd be interested to see what this card-driven tableau system can bring. We'll see. You know, what's the price point here? It is only $61, so that's what you get. And you know what? I like the theme, so give it a look-see. Royal Hospital. There you go. Crowdfunding roundup donezo. So, what do you think? This weekend, you know, I had to make a decision. So we're getting the upcoming crowdfunding must-haves, quote-unquote, games of November, because I decided to pull out yesterday's October's look-back video of where are they, what are they doing, and what have they done for me lately. And boy, howdy, was that a big one yesterday, right? Like 27 games over 3 years. I'm sorry, it was like a 50-minute video, but I wanted to cover a lot of big names and a lot of big games. But speaking of the upcoming one from this weekend, this is probably the most stacked November I have ever seen on crowdfunding. No hyperbole, no hype, just straight up a ton of big name games. But it's like almost 3/4 of them have to have campaigns or scenario driven aspects. So if that's your thing, you're gonna get lots of it. If that ain't your thing, it might be a really easy month for you from a wallet standpoint. So take that for what it is. And you know what? It's been a couple weeks. Board Game Unpopular Opinions Part 2 next week. We'll see. And yeah, Jeremy Howard brought up this idea, and I was been toying around with it too. But I was trying to figure out a way to do like the board game equivalent of reaction videos. And I've been toying around with it for like literally 6 to 12 months. And I just can't figure out a way to do it that wouldn't be just totally negging on other people's videos. Because I feel like the only thing that would be really halfway relevant would be pulling up someone else's video of a top 10 of, you know, ranking of something and saying, no, I disagree with this for this reason. No, I disagree with this for this reason. No, I actually agree with this for this reason. But I don't see another way of doing it. The only other thing I ran across was these little YouTube short videos that get millions of views that are basically clickbait and over exaggerated responses to playing games and things like that. But I don't know if that was worth it either. So, you know, your reaction stuff is a huge thing on YouTube, and I've been looking at it, but I don't know. It feels weird. It feels weird because this community is so guarded in terms of internal criticism as well. Rightly and wrongly so at the same time, right? So, I don't know. Something about toying around. Would that be interesting to you? Again, like actively having someone and just debating them? Because again, like, right? Like people are, I think, would take that very personally. I think that would be taken very personal, and I'm already ostracized enough as it is, right? I mean, the counterpoint to that is you can't get any more ostracized. Just kidding. I don't know. So I got to see where some stuff is at, and I got to film a couple reviews this weekend. I may or may not have spoilers here at the very end for those of you, 6 of you that are tuning in. I may have picked up a copy of Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth before the Shut Up and Sit Down video went live. And so I have a copy, and I'll have some thoughts on it. I actually had a tremendous gaming weekend last weekend. I played 3 games that have the real potential to end up in a top 10 list. All either, just being released or not yet released as well. But it was that good. Like, I was really impressed. And all 3 of them were vastly different. One of them, a lot of you would hate, and I know why people hate it, but it's also doing something just in a great way if you like that sort of game. Another game completely changed my mind, and the 3rd game was completely unintuitive until all of a sudden it clicked. So if that's not intriguing for you, stay tuned. More where that came from. Stay classy. Thumb, subscribe, peace out. See you around. Have a great weekend. Stay classy. I bid you adieu, good friends of the channel.